gentle hum filled the air inside the well-lit jewelry store in Portland, Maine. Gleaming display cases lined the walls, each one showcasing rings, necklaces, and gems that shimmered under the soft glow of strategically placed lights. Every piece seemed imbued with a story, a quiet whisper of elegance waiting to adorn someone's life. At the entrance, Mai stepped inside while adjusting the worn leather purse resting on her shoulder. In her late 70s, she carried herself with the dignified grace of a woman who had seen many seasons pass. Her silver curls, neatly tucked beneath a well-worn beret, framed her kindly face, and her dark eyes, warm with experience, took in the familiar displays with a smile that hinted at both fond memories and quiet pride. Mai had visited this store countless times before, a ritual deeply woven into her life. The store was the pride and joy of her son, Phong, who had poured his heart into building the business from the ground up. Each visit filled her with a surge of pride, for she knew that Phong's hard work had transformed Golden Lotus Jewelers into one of the most admired spots in town. Today, as on many other occasions, Mai had come to surprise her son with an unannounced visit, a cherished routine in which she would drop by every few weeks, often bearing a lunch from his favorite cafe. She loved watching him interact with clients and witnessing him at ease in his element. However, on this particular day, when she arrived, Phong was not present. A brief message from the clerk at the front desk explained that Phong had stepped away for a meeting with a new supplier and would return shortly. Mai did not mind the delay. She was more than content to spend some time browsing the exquisite displays. As she wandered slowly down the aisles, her fingers brushed lightly against the glass cases, an action that stirred a feeling of warmth born from years of familiarity with the store. Her eyes eventually drifted to a particular set of diamond earrings, whose radiant sparkle reminded her vividly of a pair she had once owned many years ago, long before life's hardships and pressing demands had forced her to sell those cherished earrings. They had been a part of her own story, a memory of beauty and grace preserved in time. For a brief moment, nostalgia washed over her in a quiet flood of recollections. Lost in thought, Mai leaned closer to get a better look at the earrings, captivated by the way the light danced upon them. As she moved just slightly, her fingers resting against the cool surface of the glass, a small misstep occurred. Her fingers brushed against the very edge of the stand, causing one of the earrings to tip precariously. It fell to the floor with a quiet, almost imperceptible clink that sent a jolt of alarm through her heart. Startled and momentarily overwhelmed by a sudden sense of embarrassment at causing even the slightest disturbance, Mai carefully bent down to retrieve the fallen earring, mindful of her every movement in the hope of avoiding a scene, even though no one else appeared to have noticed. As Mai reached out with a gentle hand to pick up the earring, the sound of sharp heels clicking against the floor interrupted her. Looking up, she blinked in surprise as a tall, stern-faced saleswoman appeared before her. The woman, whom Mai did not recognize, must have been new to the store. Her expression was difficult to read, yet Mai sensed a chill in her gaze, a coldness that was starkly at odds with the warmth and familiarity she had come to expect from this very place, a place so lovingly managed by her son. Mai attempted to brush off the unsettling feeling and, rising to her feet, offered an apologetic smile. "I'm so sorry, dear," she said softly. "I just wanted a closer look." She continued, "These earrings remind me of a pair I once—" But before she could finish her sentence, the saleswoman's glare cut through her words like a shard of ice. The saleswoman crossed her arms and fixed Mai with a look that conveyed more than mere disapproval. In a voice as sharp and cold as broken glass, she demanded, "What do you think you're doing?" Her eyes narrowed as she stared at Mai, leaving no room for explanation. Taken aback by the abruptness of the accusation, Mai straightened her posture and held up the earring delicately, her voice steady yet soft as she explained, "I accidentally knocked it over." She tried to add, "I was just admiring it," but before she could finish, the saleswoman interrupted with a tone dripping with disdain. "Admiring it?" she said icily. "You mean you were planning on pocketing it, don't you?" The accusation hung heavily in the air, stifling and oppressive. Mai's breath caught in her throat as she stammered, "Pocketing it? That's absurd. I've never—" Yet the saleswoman paid her no heed. Her eyes swept over Mai, taking in the modest coat, the weathered purse, and every detail of her appearance. Then, with a cruel flicker in her expression, she spat out, "People like you don't belong in stores like this." Those words struck Mai as if a sharp blade had cut her, leaving her feeling raw and exposed. Her hand trembled as she extended the earring once more in a gesture of quiet protest. "I think there's been some misunderstanding," she managed to say, her voice wavering with a mix of hurt and disbelief. The saleswoman stepped closer and, with an abrupt movement that startled Mai, snatched the earring from her grasp. "Save your excuses," she snapped, her tone leaving no doubt that she was determined to escalate the situation. "I'm calling the police." In that moment, Mai's heart pounded in her chest, and her head spun with the sheer absurdity of what was unfolding. "The police?" she pleaded, her voice quivering. "That's not necessary. I didn't do anything wrong." But the saleswoman was unmoved by her protests. With unnerving composure, the saleswoman pulled out her phone and began dialing. In a voice that had grown unnervingly calm, she spoke into the phone. "Yes, I need officers at Golden Lotus Jewelers. We've caught someone trying to steal a diamond earring. She's still here, and I've detained her." In a moment of private disbelief, Mai whispered to herself, "Detained." She took a cautious step back, clutching the strap of her purse as though it might serve as an anchor amid the chaos swirling around her. The next moments passed in a blur. Mai barely registered the sound of the front door swinging open or the quick, heavy steps of two police officers entering the store. Both officers were tall, their uniforms crisply pressed, and their expressions unreadable as they strode purposefully toward the saleswoman. Almost immediately, the saleswoman launched into a theatrical recitation of events, pointing an accusatory finger at Mai. "This woman," she declared with conviction, "was caught red-handed trying to steal this earring. I had to stop her before she fled." Mai's hands shook as she tried to speak, her voice trembling. "I wasn't trying to steal anything. It was an accident. Please, I'm the owner's mother." The officers exchanged a brief glance, but their attention remained fixed on the saleswoman as she continued to assert her version of events. One of the officers turned to Mai with a gaze that was hard and impersonal. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step forward," he said. Though her knees felt weak, Mai took a hesitant step closer, pleading in a barely audible whisper, "Please, this is a mistake." Before she could utter another word, the officer abruptly grabbed her arm and pulled her roughly aside. The sudden force made her stumble, and she winced as her hands were twisted behind her back. "What are you doing?" Mai cried out, panic flooding her voice. In response, the cold metal of handcuffs clamped around her wrists, with a resounding click that seemed deafening in the quiet of the store. Mai stood frozen, too shocked to move, as tears began to well in her eyes. She looked around desperately, searching for any friendly face, for someone who might offer help, but found no one, only the saleswoman standing nearby with a triumphant, almost smug smirk. "I didn't steal anything," Mai managed to say, her voice cracking as tears spilled down her cheeks. "You're making a mistake." One of the officers spoke in a flat, emotionless tone. "You can explain yourself down at the station." The words hit her like a blow, knocking the air from her lungs. At the station, Mai, who had lived a long, full life and faced her share of challenges, was now experiencing a humiliation unlike any she had ever known. Never before had she been treated like a criminal, and though she knew in her heart that she had done nothing wrong, the situation felt unbearable. The officers, their grip firm and unyielding, began leading her toward the door. Mai's mind raced, each thought more desperate than the last. How could this be happening? This was her son's store, a place that had always been a haven of safety and comfort. Yet now it had transformed into a nightmare she could scarcely comprehend. As they reached the threshold of the building, suddenly a booming voice cut through the commotion from across the room. "What the hell is going on here?" The officers paused, and Mai turned her head toward the source of the voice. Her heart leapt with both relief and trepidation as she saw Phong standing in the doorway. His expression was a mix of confusion and fury. For just a moment, Phong stood frozen before striding purposefully forward, his commanding presence filling the space. His tailored suit, designed for meetings with suppliers, was slightly wrinkled, as though he had rushed back in a hurry, and his jaw was set tightly. His movements were quick, deliberate, and filled with the intensity of someone who could not tolerate injustice, especially not against his own mother. "Take those off her," Phong ordered in a low voice, charged with barely contained anger. One of the officers cleared his throat uneasily, saying, "Sir, we were responding to a theft complaint. Please take them off." Fong's voice rose slightly as he repeated each word with clipped precision. "Take them off." His dark eyes burned with determination as he stepped closer to his mother, shifting his focus to her and softly asking, "Are you okay, Mum?" His tone softened for a brief moment, though his hands balled into fists at his sides. Mai, still trembling, managed to nod weakly. "I didn't do anything, Phong," she whispered. "I just dropped an earring." Turning his icy gaze toward the saleswoman, Phong demanded, "Ms. Lan, care to explain why you thought calling the police on my mother was a good idea?" Ms. Lan faltered, clearly caught off guard. "Sir, I didn't know she was your mother," she stammered. "She dropped the earring and it looked like... well, I thought she was trying to..." Her voice trailed off as Fong's tone grew sterner. "You thought my mother, of all people, was a thief?" he snapped, his voice rising with indignation. "I didn't mean..." Miss Land attempted to offer a weak excuse, but her confidence crumbled under his glare. "I was just trying to protect the store," Miss Land finally offered in a shaky voice. Phong let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Protect the store from my own mother?" he retorted bitterly. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You didn't just insult her, you insulted me, this business, and everything we stand for." He gestured forcefully toward Mai, who was still trembling as she stood there, vulnerable and in distress. "Look at her. Does she look like a thief to you?" Phong demanded. Miss Land's mouth opened and closed as she struggled for a response, but no coherent words emerged. Phong then turned his attention to the officers, who had not yet removed the handcuffs. "Are you seriously just standing there?" he demanded, his voice seething with disbelief. "Do you even have any evidence that she was stealing, or did you simply take this woman's word for it?" The officers exchanged uncomfortable glances, and after a few agonizing seconds, one of them stepped forward and removed the cuffs from Mai's trembling hands. As soon as her wrists were free, Phong immediately came to her side, gently rubbing her wrists and whispering, "I'm so sorry, Mum. You shouldn't have had to go through that." Mai shook her head, her voice barely above a whisper as she murmured, "I don't understand how it got this far." Phong straightened, anger surging through him once more as he addressed everyone present. "This ends now," he declared firmly, his gaze locking onto Ms. Lan. "You're fired. I don't need people like you representing my business." Ms. Lan's face turned ashen. "Sir, please, I didn't know," she tried to protest, but Phong interrupted sharply. "I don't care. Get out now." With trembling hands, Ms. Lan fumbled with her belongings, avoiding everyone's eyes as she hurriedly left the store. Turning to the officers next, Fong's tone grew even colder. "And you too," he said pointedly, "you owe my mother an apology. She's been humiliated enough for one day." One officer cleared his throat awkwardly before replying, "We were following protocol, based on the complaint protocol." Fong's eyes flashed with disbelief. "Your protocol is to slap handcuffs on an elderly woman without even investigating the truth. Is that what you call protecting and serving?" The officers stood in silence for a moment, their earlier confidence evaporating, until one finally mumbled, "We're sorry, Mum." Mai looked at them with an unreadable expression and simply nodded, as if in silent acceptance of the apology, before Phong gently ushered her to a chair near the counter. "Sit down, Mum," he said softly, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I'll take care of everything." As Mai sank into the chair, Phong turned back to the officers and declared, "You can leave now. I'll be filing a formal complaint about how this was handled." The officers hesitated briefly before nodding and heading for the door, their departure marked by an awkward silence that filled the space. Phong knelt beside his mother, his voice softening as he asked, "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" Mai, with her hand resting over his, managed to reply quietly, "I just want to go home." Phong exhaled a mix of relief and lingering frustration. "We'll go soon," he promised, "but first, I'm going to make sure this never happens again." In the days that followed, a whirlwind of phone calls, statements, and legal proceedings ensued. Phong wasted no time filing an official complaint against the officers and pressing charges against Ms. Land for assaulting his mother. Though shaken by the ordeal, Mai supported her son's decision, understanding that this was not just about her. It was about preventing anyone else from enduring the same indignity and humiliation. Soon the news spread quickly. Golden Lotus Jewelers, once celebrated for its elegant reputation, found itself at the center of a heated conversation about prejudice and accountability. Customers voiced their support for Fong's actions, though a few questioned the decision to dismiss Mislan so publicly. Phong remained unyielding in his stance. "There's no room for that kind of behavior in my business," he told a local reporter, adding emphatically that there should be no room for such behavior anywhere. Meanwhile, Mislan was forced to face her own reckoning. Video footage captured by the store's security cameras left no doubt about what had occurred. The recording documented her aggression, the forceful slap, and her blatant refusal to listen to Mai's heartfelt explanations. It also revealed the rough treatment of Mai by the officers. This evidence further fueled outrage in the courtroom. During the trial, Mislan appeared visibly shaken. Gone was the confident, cold demeanor she had once projected. Instead, she looked small and fragile, her hands trembling as she sat at the defense table. The prosecutor methodically laid out the evidence, using the video footage and witness testimonies to construct a clear picture of her actions. At Phong's insistence, Mai did not have to testify, as he knew that reliving the traumatic experience in front of strangers would be too painful for her. Instead, the prosecutor relied on the recorded evidence and on statements from the police officers, who eventually admitted that they had acted too hastily. Although this admission was a small victory, it did little to erase the pain that Mai had endured. As the trial progressed, Mai began to feel a strange mix of emotions. She was grateful for the support she had received from Phong and the community, yet the incident had left a mark on her that no verdict could ever fully erase. Every time she closed her eyes, she could still feel the sting of that cruel slap, hear the relentless clink of the handcuffs, and see the disapproving glares of those who had judged her without knowing her. The jury deliberated for only a few hours before returning with a unanimous verdict: guilty on all counts. Mislan was convicted of assault and defamation, and the judge handed down a sentence that included community service and mandatory sensitivity training. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed around Phong and Mai. Phong spoke confidently, his words carrying the weight of someone determined to make a difference. "This isn't just about what happened to my mother," he declared. "It's about ensuring that no one else has to face this kind of treatment. Discrimination has no place in our society, and it's up to all of us to fight against it." Standing beside him, Mai spoke softly but with equal conviction. "I've lived a long life, and I've seen too much of this, but I believe in my son, and I believe we can do better. We have to." The crowd murmured in agreement, and as cameras flashed, a moment was captured that felt both intensely personal and universally significant. Mai's resilience, coupled with Phong's determination, had turned a moment of injustice into a rallying call for change. In the days after the verdict, a sense of closure mingled with deep reflection for Mai. The ordeal had left scars, yet it had also strengthened her resolve. Ever the protector, Phong made sure that his mother was surrounded by love and support. Friends and family visited often, infusing their lives with warmth and laughter, and slowly, the pain began to ebb away. At Golden Lotus Jewelers, significant changes were set in motion. Phong implemented new training programs for his staff, focusing on fairness, cultural sensitivity, and respectful customer service. He invited community leaders to hold workshops at the store, ensuring that Golden Lotus would become a place where everyone felt respected and welcome. As a result, the store's reputation began to recover, bolstered by Phong's transparency and his dedication to making things right for his mother. Life eventually settled into a new normal. Mai resumed her weekly visits to the store, though now she was greeted with even more warmth by both staff and loyal customers. The incident had changed her, yet it had not broken her. If anything, it had made her stronger. One afternoon, as Mai sat in Phong's modest office, sipping a cup of tea, she looked at her son with quiet pride and said, "You've done well, not just with the store, but with standing up for what's right." Phong smiled, his hand resting gently on hers, and replied, "I had a good example to follow. You taught me everything I know about resilience." Outside the store, the community had rallied together, inspired by the story of Mai and Phong. Discussions about prejudice and accountability became more frequent, spreading not only through Portland, but also reaching neighboring towns. Mai and Phong's story was shared widely, sparking conversations that transcended their small city and resonated with many who had experienced similar injustices. As Mai prepared to leave the store that day, Phong walked her to the door. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the street, and for a moment Mai paused to take in the view. Then, turning to her son with deep gratitude in her eyes, she said, "I know this wasn't easy, but you turned something awful into something meaningful. That's how change happens." Phong nodded thoughtfully, adding, "It's not over, Mum. There's still so much to do." With a quiet smile and a heart filled with hope, Mai replied, "One step at a time, son." As she walked away, the gentle chime of the bell above the door rang out softly, a sound that had once been an ordinary part of her routine, but which now served as a reminder of resilience and progress. Mai knew that the world was far from perfect, but she also knew that change was possible, one step, one story, one act of courage at a time. Each visit to Golden Lotus Jewelers, every unplanned stop by the store, now carried with it a deeper significance. It was not only a place where beautiful jewelry was displayed under the soft glow of carefully arranged lights, it was also a symbol of the ongoing struggle against prejudice and injustice, a reminder that even in moments of deep humiliation, there lies the potential for transformation and hope. Over time, the lessons learned from that fateful day reverberated through the community. The story of an elderly woman, misjudged and mistreated, had sparked a movement, one in which fairness, accountability, and dignity became more than mere words, but guiding principles for everyone. Fong's commitment to ensuring that his store would be a beacon of respect and inclusion led him to work closely with local leaders, to engage in dialogue with both customers and staff, and to put in place measures that guaranteed a safe and welcoming environment for all. It was a slow, deliberate process, one that required constant vigilance and a willingness to listen and learn. But in every conversation and every policy change, the spirit of that day lived on. As the months passed, Mai continued to visit the store. Each time she stepped inside, she was met with genuine smiles and warm greetings. The memory of the painful incident had not vanished completely, but it had gradually transformed into a powerful reminder of her own strength and of the community's capacity to rise above adversity. Golden Lotus Jewelers, once tarnished by a moment of injustice, had begun to shine anew, its reputation restored, not only through quality service and beautiful jewelry, but also through the commitment to fairness that Phong had instilled. In quiet moments, as Mai sat by the window of her modest home, she would reflect on all that had transpired. She recalled every detail, the soft hum of the store, the elegant sparkle of the diamond earrings, the shock of cold handcuffs, and the piercing accusations that had shaken her to her core. Yet, through it all, she also remembered the unwavering support of her son, the determination in his eyes, and the eventual vindication that had brought justice. It was a story of pain and triumph, of injustice met with courage, and of an ordinary woman's extraordinary resilience. Now, as Mai continued her daily routine, she carried with her the knowledge that change is often born from moments of deep challenge. Each time she passed by a familiar street corner, or saw the glimmer of a well-crafted piece of jewelry in a shop window, she remembered that even in a world that was sometimes unkind, the smallest acts of courage could ripple outward to create a wave of transformation. Her story, intertwined with Fong's, was a testament to the fact that every individual has the power to stand up for what is right, to demand respect, and to inspire others to do the same. In the quiet moments that followed her visits to the store, Mai would often sit with a cup of tea, her thoughts drifting between memories of the past and hopes for the future. The hardships she had endured were etched in her heart, yet they also served as fuel for a newfound determination. She found solace in knowing that her experience had not been in vain, that it had sparked necessary conversations and initiated changes that would protect others from similar mistreatment. And although the scars of that day would always remain, they had in time become symbols of a hard-won victory against prejudice and injustice. Phong, too, found himself transformed by the events that had unfolded. His initial anger had given way to a steadfast commitment to reform, both within his own business and in the broader community. He became a vocal advocate for fairness and cultural sensitivity, speaking at community meetings and engaging with local leaders to ensure that Golden Lotus Jewelers would serve as a model for accountability and respect. In doing so, he honored not only his mother's dignity, but also the values that had been instilled in him throughout his life. As the years passed, the legacy of that difficult day continued to resonate. Mai's unwavering spirit and Fong's determination to create positive change inspired many who heard their story. The transformation of Golden Lotus Jewelers was more than a business turnaround. It was a powerful reminder that even in the face of deep injustice, there is always an opportunity to rebuild, to restore trust, and to move forward with renewed hope. Thus, the tale of Mai and Phong became a part of the local lore in Portland, Maine, a story recounted with pride and solemnity at community gatherings and local events. It was a narrative that transcended the boundaries of a single incident, resonating with anyone who had ever felt marginalized or misunderstood. The beauty of the jewelry in the store was no longer the only thing that drew people in. The true allure lay in the values of compassion, resilience, and the unwavering belief that every person deserves to be treated with dignity. And so, as Mai continued to make her weekly visits, each step she took inside Golden Lotus Jewelers was imbued with meaning. Every glance at a glimmering piece of jewelry recalled not only the delicate artistry of its design, but also the artistry of human courage and the triumph of justice over prejudice. With each visit, the store evolved into more than a space for commerce. It became a sanctuary where respect was nurtured and every individual's worth was recognized. In the twilight of her years, Mai knew that the world might never be perfect, yet she also believed that change was not only possible but inevitable. One courageous act, one heartfelt story, and one determined step at a time. Her legacy, intertwined with that of her son, would serve as a beacon for future generations, inspiring them to stand up for what is right, even when the odds were stacked against them. For Mai, every visit to the store, every unplanned moment of recognition, and every challenge met with dignity reaffirmed her deep-seated belief in the possibility of a kinder, more just world. This belief, nurtured through decades of experience and adversity, remained the cornerstone of her spirit. In the gentle echo of the store's chime, in the soft glow of its lights, and in the quiet determination of every person who walked through its doors, the message was clear. Change begins with the courage to speak out, to stand firm in the face of injustice, and to transform even the most painful moments into opportunities for growth and reconciliation. Today, as Mai looks back on that fateful day, she sees not only the pain, but also the promise of renewal. Her experience has become a reminder to all who hear it that every injustice, however small it might seem at the moment, carries the potential to catalyze change when met with courage and compassion. And as the community continues to learn, evolve, and come together in the spirit of understanding, the story of Mai and Phong endures. A story of an ordinary woman's extraordinary strength, of a son's unyielding dedication to what is right, and of a community's resolve to ensure that dignity and respect prevail.